Welcome back to Windsor Chronicles, your trusted royal deep dive podcast, where the headlines meet history and where we decode what the palace won't say aloud. Today's episode, Prince William, the reading test in Brazil, explores a peculiar royal moment that's gone viral. Prince William's apparent attempt to prove that yes, he can, in fact, read. It sounds absurd, right? But this story runs deeper than memes and royal gossip. It reveals something about the image-making machine behind the monarchy, about authenticity, and about the fine line between duty and performance in a 21st century crown. It's early November 2025. Prince William is on the tail end of his trip to Brazil, part royal charm offensive, part environmental diplomacy. He's there for COP30 in Belém, meeting with world leaders including Brazil's President Lula da Silva and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. On paper, this trip is about the Earthshot Prize, climate innovation and international cooperation. But behind the royal smiles and photo ops, a different story was brewing, one that started back home in the UK, in the pages of The New Statesman. The New Statesman had just published a provocative cover story, an in-depth argument for the abolition of the British monarchy. The piece didn't just critique the institution, it questioned Prince William's very fitness to lead it. One of its sharper claims, that there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that William might be, in the words of the article, functionally illiterate. Now, before you gasp, this wasn't meant literally. It was a critique of his disinterest in reading, his known habit of skipping briefing documents, and his repeated admissions that he's not much of a reader at all. For royal watchers, this wasn't entirely new. William has long been seen as someone who prefers talking points over textbooks. But still, the label stung, and like many public figures, especially royals, William seemed determined to prove the critics wrong. So, what did Prince William do? Well, during his final day in Brazil, he staged what can only be described as a reading moment. Photographers were suddenly allowed to capture him, visibly, reading his speech notes while en route to Belém. Then came the grand finale. William at the podium, delivering his big COP30 address, teleprompter and all. The message was clear. The optics were obvious. See, he reads, he's thoughtful, he's serious. But as social media quickly pointed out, the harder the palace tried to prove it, the more performative it looked. And that's where this becomes fascinating. William has earned a few cheeky nicknames lately, one of them being the Scooter King, a jab at his public stiffness and sometimes tone-deaf attempts to appear relatable. But at the heart of this isn't mockery, it's about authenticity. In modern monarchy, image is everything. Every photo op, every soundbite, every trip abroad is a calculated move. So when William is seen awkwardly overperforming literacy, it doesn't come across as endearing. It feels scripted. And that lack of genuine connection is the same reason critics argue he struggles with causes like homelessness or environmentalism, issues that require empathy, self-awareness, and moral clarity. How can a man who owns multiple luxury estates speak about homelessness without irony? How can a royal jet-setter become the global face of sustainability without facing questions about hypocrisy? These contradictions define William's image today. Let's talk about homelessness, one of William's longest-running causes. Many believe he genuinely cares about the issue, but his messaging has always clashed with his privilege. As one commentator put it, he's the wrong messenger for the right message. He speaks of housing insecurity while living across palaces, estates, and duchy homes. He champions climate change action while travelling by private jet to deliver those speeches. And in Brazil, surrounded by lush mangroves and global climate advocates, that tension was on full display. William wants to be seen as modern, active, and intellectual, but every gesture seems to reinforce the opposite. Then came the internet's verdict. Clips of William reading his speech went viral, not because of what he said, but because of how obviously staged it seemed. Comments ranged from sympathetic to savage. He's really trying to prove he's literate. Bless him, he's learning. This is like when your teacher makes you read aloud in class. The irony, of course, is that the palace probably thought this would be a positive PR move. But the royal image game doesn't work that way anymore. The public has grown more cynical, more perceptive. They can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. And just when the memes were cooling down, came the video. A clip surfaced from earlier in the week, showing William at a volleyball event in Brazil, making what can only be described as an awkward hand gesture moment. Let's just say, he wasn't adjusting a watch. The internet went wild. The optics, disastrous. The timing, unfortunate. From "see, I can read" to "oops, that's not a good look," it perfectly encapsulated the PR whiplash of modern royalty. What we're really seeing here is a crisis of royal branding. King Charles still represents continuity, the traditional ceremonial monarch. William, however, was meant to be the future, the relatable, global, socially conscious heir. But the more the palace tries to polish him, the more obvious the cracks become. The public doesn't want perfection, they want honesty. And until William learns to stop performing sincerity and start living it, these stories will keep repeating themselves. So, did Prince William prove he can read? Technically, yes. Symbolically, not quite. Because in the modern age, reading isn't about literacy, it's about reading the room. And when it comes to public perception, empathy, and authenticity, the prince still seems to be flipping through the pages, trying to find the right chapter. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Windsor Chronicles. If you enjoyed today's royal deep dive, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment below. What do you think? Is Prince William's problem bad PR or a deeper disconnect with modern values? Join the discussion, and as always, stay curious, stay regal, and stay tuned for the truth behind the crown.